Okay, you guys, let's take a look at the chord changes and a lead sheet of what I would generally do if I was arranging this tune. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this in the key of G or some other key. I haven't decided yet for the big band, but I did this in G, so you can compare the two. And we'll go over a few points here that you can learn from if you don't already know some of these things, and why I chose some of these chord changes. Many years ago, I studied with Frank Mantooth, and we would always, the first thing is go through, he was like a harmonic expert, and we would go through a tune and basically reharmonize it and come up with alternate chord changes where we could, and so on and so forth. You don't always have to use the same chord changes throughout your arrangement. You can interchange them, you can add a little spice here and there, especially as the chart progresses. But I did want to point out a few things here. We'll just go by one by one here, and I'll explain them why I chose some of these. Now, obviously, this is in the key of G, and we start on a 1 chord, but this is what I mentioned in an earlier video about the G sharp. George had put a G sharp diminished 7 on the second one all the time. And here's an example of one that you can substitute. Basically, it's a 5, basically a 5 to 1 going to this A minor 7. So we have 1, 6, 2, and then 5, 1 basically. So I chose to use E13 flat 9 and have the bass go down on E there. Now other parts of the tune you could actually go up to G sharp diminished 7, and you never want the listener to always know what's going to come next. And harmonically you can shift around these things to make the arrangement flow much nicer if you always did the same chord. For instance, let me just address this harmonic rhythm. If you don't know what harmonic rhythm is, it's basically the frequency of chord changes. So every tune is going to have a harmonic rhythm generally, and it's going to be fairly consistent. This is a standard AABA tune, and we have a harmonic rhythm of generally, if you look down here, generally 2 chords per bar. 2 chords per bar is generally the harmonic rhythm. Now there are other spots like here. This is called a turnaround. I'll get to that in a minute. But we also have some measures where I did something a little different, and I added a chord change on every beat. Now some of these things automatically come through when you're writing for the horns, and the horn players like to play lines, and when they do play lines, they you can also write lines to affect the harmony as well. So what I'm doing here in the second bar is I put a chord substitution in there to help out with the melody notes. I see an E and a G there. If I go up a half step and do B flat 13 sharp 11, I have a sharp 11 right there and a 13 right there. So it fits perfectly. So rather than just go A minor 9 and then wait for that D7 chord, I implemented a kind of like a tritone sub, not really, but it just kind of like a planing situation where I go up a half step. The melody really reinforces that chord right there, and then I finish it out with a 2, 5, and then here's the 1 chord. Okay, a lot of times melody notes will kind of dictate what you can and cannot do. So you'll have to experiment and play through it at the piano. If you notice in this C13 sharp 11 chord, we've got the 13th there, and we've got the sharp 11 right there in the F sharp, and the 9th right there, and then I move up to the melody note there. But the melody will dictate, and it'll give you a lot of options as to chord changes that you can implement without making it sound weird or anything like that. So you can see the harmonic rhythm here. I should have put B minor 7 there, sorry about that. Notice how I always reflect what the melody note is. Instead of saying A minor 7 here, I put A minor 11 because there's the 11th of the chord. So I want the piano player to know when they're comping or whatever to be able to add the 11th without any problem, because it's already somewhere in the horn players. Okay, we talked about a turnaround. Here's a turnaround right here. It generally will speed up the harmonic rhythm and move you nice and smooth to the 1 chord at the second A section. So notice I've got an E in the melody note, and it's just sitting there. So when the melody's sitting there, you can have some moving chords, and that will really help your harmonic movement of the piece or of the arrangement. So we've got B minor 11, Second beat is E augmented 7. You could do any kind of an E altered there because E is already there. You don't have to worry about the root of the chord is there. So you can do any kind of dominant 7th alter chord there. A minor 9 is on the third beat. And then D, I could have done D9 there. I probably should have, because there's the 9th right there as a pickup to the next bar. But I did D plus 7. I think D9 is probably a better choice there. Okay, so we go into the second 8 starting here. Now notice here I could have done G sharp diminished 7 right there, and maybe I would do that, or I would wait until the last A to do that, so it's not so predictable. This is a little bit of a misprint. This A minor 9 to A minor sharp 7. I can't really do that because that note is not a sharp 7. So unless the player moves off that G sharp for the and of 2, then I can't do that. So just put A minor 9. Let's get rid of that chord right there. Now here's an interesting thing that I do quite a bit of, and that is delaying a resolution using a sus chord, and there it is right there. So D7 sus, I could probably do D9 sus, or D13 sus, going to D13 flat 9, because there's the 13th of a D chord. So what this does is give you some inner voice movement, moving from the sus chord to the, you'll see that a lot of my charts have that kind of thing in there as far as harmony goes. Okay, moving on, as you can see, the harmonic rhythm stays about the same. Here's the thing that it can add some variety. When you have a tune that ends on the root of the chord, we're in the key of G and it ends on a G, and a lot of standards do that, you can actually delay that resolution by ending on a up a half step major 9th chord or whatever, major 7th chord, because that's the major 7th. This should be A flat major 9. That finale does weird things. So if you play this on the piano, you actually get delayed resolution, and it's a little bit of a some color there, and then moves to the tonic right there. Tonic is the 1 chord. Okay, now we move into the bridge, and here's where George had some interesting chords, and I'll get to those in future videos as we look at the arrangement. But here's an instance where you can just simply do either D minor 7 to G13. In this case, I did G13 sus to G13. But I may do D minor here and then go to the 5 chord there, and then I may do G13 sus. So I may not do that every time, what you're seeing right there. Now, I believe George had G13 going to G13 going to D minor 9 or something like that. You'll have to look at the piece. But that's a little weird because he's using the 6th. In this case, I move from, there's a resolution from the C to G, which is a third of that chord right there. Okay, so moving on, we get to C6, 9. Now you notice I did A13 sus here, the same type of thing. Nothing there. Same type of stuff here. And we pretty much have the same type of stuff here. So there it is. I did a delayed resolution there with an A flat major 7 to G. Now here at the end, I would probably do some kind of turnaround again because it's going back to the 1 chord. So depending on what you're going to do there in the arrangement. So take a look at this, play it through at the piano, and you may come up with some other interesting things as well. But the melody notes are going to dictate what you can do as far as reharmonization goes. And if it sounds too weird and out of context, it probably is. It needs to sound really smooth and in context, and the melody reigns supreme as far as adding chords. But chords can really make your arrangement sound lush and more interesting, especially if you have moving lines that integrate between these chord changes. So if you have any questions, please leave them below. Thanks.